Hey guys, welcome back to Heart Breathings. So I literally have maybe like 15 minutes just to sit down, and I know I've been a little bit late on videos, but I wanted to talk a little bit today about how I'm handling the pressure of being behind on a deadline and feeling like I've let people down, because I think this is an important topic in indie publishing and really for any entrepreneur or anybody who is feeling the pressure and anxiety of the last, year kind of weighing on you. So let's have a little bit of a chat. I have kind of angled my camera. I'm just sitting on the floor in my office to where you're not seeing the majority of the deadline hell mess in my office. I'm also sipping on a Starbucks tea that I bought yesterday and have kind of slowly consuming. So let's have a little bit of tea time with Sarah. So kind of what I wanted to talk about today is just sort of how I've been continuing to move forward and dealing with my anxiety, because starting towards the end of April, I started getting these anxiety attacks. It kind of came out of nowhere. It's been probably 12 years or more since I've had anxiety attacks like this. Now, I always kind of struggle with anxiety a little bit. I've had quite a bit of trauma in my past, and so I'm always trying to work through that, go through therapy, take care of myself, deal with a lot of that with my mental health. But this is the first time in more than a decade that I've actually had anxiety attacks that are like attack my entire nervous system, where I've got butterflies in my stomach, I've got just all kinds of other things, nausea, just extreme anxiety. If you've been through it, you know what I'm talking about, like shortness of breath, your heart is just like going crazy. Not exactly a panic attack, I wouldn't call it, but I just have been calling it an anxiety attack. And I have been doing everything I can to take care of myself. But it just so happens that these anxiety attacks have been coming at a time when I have a lot of things that are due. And that is a little bit more difficult because I had a pre-order on my book, and I already, if you've been around since NaNoWriMo Diaries, you know that I already missed a pre-order for my book last year. So to miss another pre-order is really, really tough. Now, I will say this, I'm not planning on doing pre-orders for my books ever again unless the book is already finished. I don't usually do them, but both of these books, the one I missed last year and this one, were pre-orders I set up at the same time last October. So once I missed the first one, I was afraid this was going to happen to the second one too, but it was too late. It was already set up, right? So lesson learned, we learn, we grow, we continue to move forward. But I was trying still to meet this deadline. Went away. I had told you guys I was going to vlog my trip to Hilton Head, and ended up not only having a huge PCOS flare up and I was in a lot of pain, I also had, after that, knowing that I was going to miss the deadline, a huge anxiety attack, and really pulling all of that pressure onto myself. So this is just something I wanted to kind of have like a tea chat / coffee chat about, is that pressure that we put on ourselves and the anxiety that sometimes we can have in a career like this, where, in my case, I am the sole income of my family. So a lot rests on my shoulders. We have a new house that we were supposed to be moving into, that now that kind of dream house scenario is potentially on the rocks. So if you want to know more about that, I can talk about that in another video. But there's a lot of stress and outside things happening just in my personal life. Then on top of it, there's a lot of pressure that goes into getting a book out, especially when you're deep into a series. And I wanted to address that because I think it's something a lot of authors don't talk about, because number one, it's not an easy thing to talk about missing a deadline and falling short or disappointing people. Nobody wants to do it. Nobody's proud of themselves for doing it. So it's hard to talk about because it makes you look like you're not reliable, or you're not taking care of yourself, or other judgments that people, invite judgment upon you. So it's something a lot of people don't talk about. Second of all, it's something that I think a lot of us suffer through in silence, because we're scared those same judgments that people will judge us for how we are presenting ourselves, for the mistakes that we've made, for, not being able to pull through. And, there's a huge level of comparison in this type of career, where you can see other people's sales ranks, you can see who hit the New York Times bestseller list. You hear a lot of people talk about, oh, I made this much money, or I sold this many books. And so indie publishing and publishing in general just tends to be, I think, one of those careers where it invites comparison. So if you are sensitive to comparing yourself to other people, it can be a really tough career, because you think, why don't I have as many Instagram followers? Why don't I have a YouTube channel? Maybe I should have more sales. Am I successful if I've only sold, 500 copies of my books, or do I have to sell 5,000 to be successful? Do I have to hit the USA Today bestseller list to be a success? And so we are looking to other people often to judge where we are in the process and whether we're doing a good job. And I think that that can invite a lot of pressure and anxiety into our lives to begin with. In the indie side of book writing, there's also a ton of pressure to produce quickly. And with Kindle Unlimited that came out, 5 years ago now, I don't even remember how long. It's been too long in my opinion. But with Kindle Unlimited, it became even worse. Like, the faster you can publish, the better. And if you can't put out, 20 books a year, you're never going to be successful. Don't buy into that way of thinking, by the way. It's very toxic. You can be very successful only putting out 2 books a year, 1 book a year, if you do it right. But we won't go into that here today. But it's just this idea that there really is a ton of pressure to get a certain sales numbers, to have a certain level of income, to compare yourself to other people, to look like you're successful, to gather a lot of followers, to put out your books quickly, to write in certain genres. And that pressure can really start to add up. And at first, it may just seem like, you may be like moving forward just on the sheer excitement of your goal. Like, I'm going to be a published writer. This is so exciting. I've made a few dollars. I'm getting, really excited about this. But sometimes when you've been in it for a while and you're either not seeing the sales you want, or you're seeing sales decline, or you're just not in a super creative part of your life and you're seeing repercussions of not being able to write as fast as you used to, or your series isn't taking off the way you had hoped, or whatever it is, those pressures can really start to compound. And I think that in some ways, this has been what has happened for me over the past year or so. So in 2018, I put out 5 books, and that was by far my most productive year. We had just moved to the beach. I was eating super healthy, so I was having like really the best feeling year of my life, because we were trying to get pregnant, and with PCOS, doctors had said it was impossible. So I was eating super, super healthy, taking really good care of my body to try to get pregnant. So I think a natural occurrence of that, plus, we were 2 miles from the beach at that point, living in a rental house that was just beautiful. And I think that I was really soaking up that atmosphere, and I was really joyful and excited, and I was able to produce more. It was just a productive season in my life. I cannot stress to you enough how important it is to not compare yourself. Like, people always say, the only person you should compare yourself to is the you were yesterday. And while that is true, that we should always be growing, it can also be a dangerous thing to say, because I don't want to compare where I am now with 2 kids, additional stress, a bigger YouTube channel, all these other things, with the writer that I was 3 or 4 years ago when I was producing 4 or 5 books a year, or the writer I was 10 years ago when I was getting, building a series that was very successful. Because sometimes in this business, it's going to be a roller coaster. You're going to have years where you are super creative and things are flowing. And you're going to have other years where you're feeling really down, or you've got a lot of pressure, or there's a lot going on in your personal life that don't lend to creativity in any way. And maybe you've got more anxiety. Maybe you've got other outside pressures that are pulling you down and make it difficult to be creative. Let's just say that there are some careers that don't depend so much on your mental state and your environment. Whereas I feel like being a writer very much depends, like how creative you are and how well you're doing getting into flow, depends very much on your environment and your mental health state. And so sometimes we're going to be in periods of major growth and creativity, and sometimes we're going to be more stagnated. And so the frustration of indie publishing sometimes, and publishing in general, is just that we have kind of found ourselves with Kindle Unlimited and some of these other like strategies of rapid release and get the books out really fast that have been successful for some people. It has hurt the industry in so many other ways, because it has put pressure on all of us to feel like we have to be in this state of 10-book, furious writing, of creative juices flowing all the time, literally for the rest of our lives. And that's just not going to be true. And, I could just do an entire rant about how frustrating it is, because there are basically what people call farms. So you'll have a pen name where it's not even a writer who is behind it. It's a mastermind businessman usually who is hiring, 10 or 15 authors to write 1 or 2 books for him a year under a certain pen name. So he'll give them the basic plot or the series Bible, and then they write the books. And so that person, that pen name, can put out 20 or 30 books a year, but it's not a single writer doing that, right? It's a farm of writers. And then those of us who are raising kids, trying to be creative, consider this an art form, and we're pouring our hearts into it, can be hurt by that and compare ourselves to this $1 million like fake person who is putting out 30 books a year. I also have a really good friend who does not have any kids at home, and her kids are grown, and she writes like 7 books a year. And I can't compare myself to her either, because I have more on my plate with my family than she does at this season of her life. So basically what I'm trying to say is, I don't mean for this to be like me judging anyone else or what phase they're in. It's just that we are sometimes going to be in phases of our creativity where things are flowing and we have more time and we have more availability of our creative minds to produce quickly. And sometimes we're not. And it can be hard to look back on the past us when we were able to do those things versus where we are now, and wishing that we could continue that up. So when I set up 2 pre-orders for my books, Fate's Surrender and Vengeful Darkness, back in October, I was thinking that it would be a good catalyst for me. Okay, I'm a procrastinator at heart, so this will give me a chance to go forth and, have that deadline, and it'll push me to finish the books on time. If you watched my NaNoWriMo diaries, you will see that I really tried my best to get Fate's Surrender out on time, and it just didn't come together. And then I took a little bit of a break at the beginning of December, got right back to it, and published the book in January, and it was fine. But that put me behind on the second book. And the second book is actually the more important book in terms of my sales, because this is book 11 of my Shadow Demon saga that has sold, hundreds of thousands of copies of those books. And so I have lots of people waiting on this book. And looking back on it in hindsight, I never should have set up the pre-order when I hadn't even yet started writing the book. But I thought I could do it. Bad idea. We'll never do it again. I usually don't do pre-orders, so this was a bad experiment for me. But I was hoping that it would be that like lighting a fire under my procrastinating self, and instead it caused a tremendous amount of anxiety. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about how I have been dealing with that anxiety and the knowledge that I have disappointed people, and how to keep moving forward, because I know that so often when we're in a downswing in our creativity, or when we're comparing ourselves to other people, we can often come up short and start feeling like, man, I really suck and I just want to quit. And so if you've ever been in that place, I hope that this will help you a little bit, because number one, you can see that you're not alone. Even people who are quote unquote successful or been at this for more than 10 years still have these moments. I am still in this place where I don't do everything perfectly. Every release doesn't go perfect. The words don't always come out the way I want them to. And I still sometimes feel like a big fat failure. But I keep moving forward, and here's kind of my advice or my experience with that. So basically, the book was scheduled originally for May. I pushed it back to June 1st. So now it is June 11th when I'm recording this. No, it's June 10th. It is June 10th when I'm recording this. So it's 10 days late. I am super, super hopeful and believe that I will finish the book tonight, but I thought it was going to take me like 3 days, and instead has taken me 10, 11, 12 days to finish this final version. Now, if you'd like to see a video of how this process has come and what I've been doing to finish the book when it wasn't coming together, I can do that. But I will just say that part of the reason I'm delayed is that I finished the rough draft. Everything looked like it was going to be fine. And then when I was going through the final read through, I realized that there was just something missing about the book. So enter the panic. Now, I have been having anxiety attacks that have been really, really bad, like can't draw a breath, having really bad physical reaction since late April, when I first realized that this book was not coming together as quickly as I wanted it to. And that has, of course, made the creative process more difficult because it's hard to be creative when you have anxiety. And I am no stranger to just kind of run-of-the-mill, low-level anxiety on a daily basis, but this is like deep in my body, complete what I would call an attack. And it has been taking me maybe 1 to 2 days after to even calm down enough. And it feels, I'll just say it feels traumatic, like true suffering. And I know that sounds a bit dramatic, but that's the best way I can describe it. And so I have lost several days of not only video production here, but other things to this. Now, you guys see this Kanban board in the back. I have a system called the HB90 system that, thank God for that, because I have still been able to get this stuff done despite the anxiety, but there's still a lot of things at the top of that board that you guys can see there that have not gotten done because I have just not been able to do them. But thank goodness I can look at that board and my plan and I can say, okay, here's the low hanging fruit and here's the things I can still manage. And that is one thing that has helped me with my anxiety, is having a plan where I know so many of the individual tiny little steps. So in the HB90 system, we have the goals, and then we break it down into projects, and then we break those projects into like tiny little bite-sized tasks that you can complete in like 15 minutes or an hour. And then all of those tasks go on the board, and you can use a Kanban board like this or like Trello or something digital, or just a checklist in your planner. But knowing those little tiny steps has allowed me throughout this time of extreme anxiety to go up to the board and look up and say, okay, what's something that I can manage today even when I'm feeling really bad? Okay, I can write that blog post, or okay, I can take some photos, I can arrange this and that'll kind of be calming. I can arrange these things and take these photos and that'll be fine. Can I write 1,000 words? No. So that stays up on the board, but at least I can identify some other things. So that's one tip that I have for you if you deal with anxiety like this, is to identify really small, low hanging fruit, low energy tasks that you can still get done that will still move you forward. I'm not talking about busy work. I'm talking about going through a process of knowing what's going to move you forward. Now, if you want my help going through this, shameless plug that my HB90 course is starting this Sunday. If you want to come join and learn how I did this and how you can build in buffer days and set a schedule that is more realistic for yourself, come join us in the HB90 class. We start on Sunday, and I'll have some more information for you down in the description box. But that has helped me tremendously throughout the last several years I've been using this system of having the flexibility. Now, there's still going to be a lot of stuff on the board I don't finish because I just had too much anxiety, other things I needed to focus on, but I at least was able to accomplish some of these projects and goals and see them through despite having anxiety. Another tip that I have is to separate yourself from the triggers. Now, for me, part of the horrible thing of having anxiety and missing a deadline is knowing that I've disappointed someone. This goes back to conditioning in my past with a narcissistic mother, and I have a really hard time disappointing people or having people be upset with me. This is something that I am personally, something I still have to work through even at my age. I have to constantly be aware and be telling myself you are worthy, it's okay, because having someone be upset or say they're disappointed in me is very difficult. So you can only imagine, for fans that have been waiting for 2 years for a book, finding out that the book is not coming out on the day when they pre-ordered it. I have gotten some nasty comments. So on my blog, it was stuff like, how can I cancel this pre-order? I wish I'd never bought a book by you. I had some emails from people that were like, I wish I could get my money back on every book I've ever purchased from you. I'm going to cancel this pre-order and never read anything by you again. You do this with every release, which is not true, by the way. I've done this like on these last 2 releases and very rarely before that. But it's just, some of the nasty comments have been really hard. Now, in years previous, I have felt like I needed to see those comments and respond and apologize to people. But this time, something I've realized is that when I read those comments, it just triggers that anxiety, like that feeling of extreme discomfort in my stomach and my gut. When I read someone say, like, I wish I'd never read a book by you, it's heartbreaking. And I spent a lot of time sobbing reading those comments. And then I thought, why am I reading this? Now, part of it is because my assistant quit. So I no longer had a like a buffer. The person that was filtering my emails and keeping those things from me was no longer there. And I still needed to check my email because we have a course coming up this weekend. So I had to kind of get creative. And I said, okay, well, I had to just sort of set some boundaries. So my Sarra Cannon email is currently completely not monitored. I don't know if someone has sent me messages there. So if you've sent me a message to my Sarra Cannon email about the HB90 course, I have not seen it. I also have not been checking anything on my Facebook page or my DMs because several people decided that it would be fun to like email me a nasty comment and make sure that it went into my private DMs on Instagram too, just in case I missed how mad they were. So I had to separate myself from the things that were super high triggering. Now, I don't want to avoid life altogether, and eventually I'm going to go back in and be able to handle those. But until this book is done, I needed to separate myself from those triggering kind of comments. I have my admins in my Facebook group and my Discord are kind of monitoring for any angry comments. Now, readers have a right to be upset, but I don't necessarily need to take the brunt of that. So I have separated myself from those comments for now. Number two, I have really worked to build my support system. So I have a tarot life coach, Tanya Melendez-Gonzalez, who I've been working with very closely for years past. I called her up. I'm like, okay, we need private sessions. It's like spiritual therapy. I also have been working with my therapist. The only thing I haven't done that I wish I could do is go and get a massage, but I have not had a chance to go and have time to get any kind of like massage or anything like that. So that is another thing I think would be helpful for me. I haven't had a chance to do. Also, support with my husband, my best friends, and not complaining about it or saying ugly things about myself, like I'm so disappointed in myself, but instead having friends that will say, you're doing great. How's the work today? Take a break if you need it. Like my husband has been tapping me on the shoulder after 11 hours of being at the computer. Now I'm taking care of myself and I am getting up and getting water and spending time with the kids. But I've had some days where I've worked, 10, 11 hours and my husband taps me on the shoulder and he's like, it's time to stop. I don't care how far you still got to go. You've got to take a break. And so having that support system has been key for me. Also, I have created a plan for myself where I've been able to say, okay, so I'm not going to have as many YouTube videos on heart breathings this month. So what on this board can I say is not getting done? I had planned on doing another course. I had planned on recording an audiobook this quarter. So I quickly was able to identify, okay, what can I take off my plate and what can I still do? Which took away a lot of the overwhelming feeling of like, I've still got to do all these things. I was able to go, okay, this, and this, I'm not going to do those. So I created a plan. I also kind of created a plan for how much time I was going to be able to spend on this per day. Now, I had hoped the book would come together much faster than it has. And in years past, I have basically just been like, I'm going to stay up all night and not take care of my health until this book is done because I owe people a book and I would be frantic. This time it has been different. Now, it's also taking me longer to finish it, but it's been different because frankly, I just refused to punish myself. And this was a big step for me because in the past, I think that's exactly what it was, punishing myself for not following through, for disappointing people. And instead I've said, you know what? I love writing. I actually really enjoy edits. And this is fun for me when I'm not punishing myself for being behind. So I just had to accept the fact it's behind. There are some people who are upset about it. I'm going to set that over here and not worry about it because I can't change the past. And instead, I'm going to focus on how can I still finish this book and enjoy the process. And so I've been getting 8 hours of sleep a night. I have been enjoying the writing. I have been sitting outside and writing with my kids while they're playing in the water and trying, instead of like every waking moment and staying up till 6 a.m. and pounding down coffee, I have been sleeping. I've been eating well. I've been taking care of myself. And that has been really, really helpful. So even if you feel like you have to rush because you've disappointed someone, I highly encourage you to stop and say, I deserve to still feel good during the writing of this book. I deserve to still take care of myself because all of that comparison, all of that pressure, none of it is worth destroying your own mental health over. 5 years from now, no one will really remember that this book was late, but they will remember that it was a good book. And they will still be getting books from me because I didn't burn myself out or run myself into extreme mental danger or hazardous space for myself by pushing too hard. And I'm reminding myself of that on a daily basis. I've also been really focusing on gratitude. So whenever I start to feel that anxiety building up in my stomach, I sit down immediately. I have these note cards kind of all over the house where I have been sitting down with a note card or a post-it note and just jotting down like 10 things I'm super grateful for. Like when my mind starts going, gosh, everybody's mad at you. This is a disaster. You know, who do you think you are? Like missing out on this pre-order. You did it twice in a row. You know, those negative thoughts start compounding, I will pull out a piece of paper and I will think, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I have these kids. Andrew's turning 9 on Saturday. I'm so happy that the weather's been extraordinarily nice here in Charleston. It's so nice to get rain. We're going to go to the beach. How lucky am I to live close to the beach? Like I just sit down and write out all the things I'm grateful for. The other thing that I've been doing besides gratitude is I've been thinking, how can I help someone else? So if I start to get really upset and start to have a problem, I think, how can I either share this information like I am with you to hopefully help someone else get through it? Or how can I reach out to somebody in email and say, hey, can I give you this thing for free? Or hey, can I help you in this way? And that has been helpful to like turn my mindset toward how can I serve someone else instead of focusing so much on myself. I've also been really focusing on how to feel good. Now, like I said, in the past, when I have missed pre-orders, I've been kind of like, how can I punish myself until it gets done? And this time I've done something a little different because of it's like necessity, because of the terrible anxiety. I've had to say, what can I do that's going to feel good today? What would be really nice to eat today? Okay, let's cook that. Let's go get that and let's cook that because I know, oh my gosh, I love that fresh corn on the cob or whatever it is. What can I do as a special treat? I ordered Starbucks. Now I've been drinking this, like I said, for 2 days now, but it was a special treat to get a Starbucks for myself. Or can I clean up this space? How is that going to feel? Can I take my laptop outside and sit in the sun? That will feel so good. So I've been focusing on how can I feel good? Oh, you know what would feel really good is to sleep in today, or to get to bed extra early, or to sit down for 30 minutes and play some video games. And so I've been focusing on the feel good instead of the punishing of myself for doing a bad thing. And I kind of touched on this already, but I've been putting it in perspective. I have been thinking, in the grand scheme of thing, 11 years of publishing, I've missed like 2 deadlines in the past. 27 novels, I've missed 2 or 3 deadlines. Like in the grand scheme of things, this is not such a big deal. Like there have been, how many people died of COVID this past year and a half? How many people have lost their homes? How many horrible things have people been going through? Missing a pre-order on a book by a month is really not that big a deal. So put it in perspective. If anybody is so mad at me that they wish they'd never read a book or spent any money by me, then they need to get it in perspective too. Because although I understand being upset about a release date, in the grand scheme of life, a release date for a movie, a pre-ordered game, or pre-ordered book, it's really not that big a deal. You will get it and it will be the best book I could write. It's just going to be a little bit late. And you know what? You're just going to read it in like the 7 hours and then you're going to be waiting for the next book anyway. So it's okay. Chill out. So I've been trying to put things in perspective. I have also been, like I said, I've been taking these note cards and putting them around the house, or like, but I've been doing post-it notes too. I've got post-it notes on my mirror, by my bedside table, by the desk that say, it's okay, you can do this, and trying to encourage my way instead of trying to like whip myself into, you got to get it done, you're the worst, all of that stuff. So I've been really mindful of the things that I'm saying to myself in my own head. And every time I hear that negative self-talk of, you're letting everybody down, you did this again, all of those things, everybody's canceling pre-orders, everybody's upset with you, I have tried to say, that is not true. Not everybody is mad. A lot of people are really waiting and being patient and really loving right now. So I'm going to focus on the loving people. Also, even if I make a mistake, even if I do something wrong, I am still worthy of feeling good, enjoying the process, and loving writing this book. I am still a good person, even if I miss a pre-order deadline. So I've been kind of moving myself to those positive ways of thinking. So I can hear the baby is up there. This is not going to be probably my most edited video of all time, but I hope you enjoyed kind of chatting with me about the perils of missing a pre-order, how to continue to be creative and keep pushing through even when I don't even want to use the word push, how to get yourself back into flow even when you've had great anxiety as a creative person. I hope some of these words have resonated and meant something to you. Hopefully next week, this book will be finished and published and successful, and I will be back to our normal content. But thank you guys so much for being here and continuing to share the content and go back and look through old videos while I have been a little bit slow to upload. If you would like to join the HB90 course, we are starting on Sunday. So if you want to learn kind of how to take your goals and break them down into bite-sized projects and give yourself a little bit of flexibility and hopefully a realistic schedule that is, one that you can have a fresh start every 90 days, come join us. We start on Sunday for a fun kickoff call, and I will see you there. Otherwise, I hope you guys have an awesome week, and I will see you next week, hopefully with our normal content returning to heart breathings. All right. Much love to you until then. Bye.